time for Wednesday's hour number 2 on Hashtag Daily K with your host, Peter Bint. Korean dramas, movies, and even lyrics. Why is the world paying attention to Korean stories?
From classics to modern masterpieces, time to dig deep into the charms of Korean literature.
On Check It Out
with Paul.
It is a Wednesday. Paul Matthews is in the studio, but Tigrish Eeyore is saying, sorry, Paul, I can't stay for the whole hour.
What? Tigrish Eeyore?
Well, wait.
That's fine.
There's
okay.
a caveat. At least I shouldn't stay for the whole hour. That's kind of tempting us to try and, I don't know, persuade you to. You said you wish to stay up until 3 a.m. your time to tune into Ashley's Twitch stream.
Yeah, I understand. It's a difficult dilemma. What I can say is that the audio on demand for my bits goes up on the Arirang website.
Oh, fabulous.
So if you do miss out on it, you can still catch up.
There you go. No excuses, Tigrish. Yeah.
Ashley's... Oh, no. I mean, let's face it. This is just a radio show. If he doesn't listen, it's okay.
What, you saying Ashley's Twitch is going to be more entertaining?
I mean, she's better looking than us.
I don't know about that, Paul. There are certain ladies out there that would give their right arm to be in this studio right now, I feel. Maybe.
More like to get out of the studio.
Perhaps. We've trapped a lot in the dungeon. Have you had a good week since we saw you last Wednesday?
I've had a busy week. I had my final filming of the year happened.
Can I share the details that you shared with me about what you might do after that filming finishes? Which you still haven't done.
Yeah, you're welcome to share that because I think next week people might be shocked.
Wow. Okay, so to prepare you, we don't want any heart attacks among the video stream listeners. Paul is planning on cutting his hair short.
Yeah, gonna get the old clippers out. And,
wow.
Because it's been 2 years. I've been doing this filming project, on and off for 2 years, which meant I've had to have the same hairstyle. And every few months I've had to cut down my beard to a goatee.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, I've been wanting to do it for a while and have contractually not been able to. So, yeah, the hair's coming off.
Was that in the contract? Like, you need the same... No.
But the point is, you need to look the same each time.
Yeah. What are you going to do with your beard, then?
I'd grow it out.
Like the whole kind of Viking style.
Yeah, I love having a big shaggy beard.
And short on top.
Short on top, I'll let it grow out again. We'll see what's happening. You know how it is.
I think I remember seeing you way back when, Paul, with really like short little curls. And that was really lovely,
come out again.
Actually.
And Sarah Louise Walsh, don't worry, I'm not leaving. Well, I am leaving at the end of today, but then I come back on Wednesday, and then I leave next Wednesday, and then I come back the Wednesday after. Yeah. So I'm not going, but the hair is going to go.
We do try and lock him in the studio, but he's a big burly fella.
Well, Matt
Paul.
Ashley lets me out, thankfully.
We do have the hashtag today of 책임감 or responsibility.
Responsible persimmon.
What does... 책임감.
Yeah.
I see what you've done there. Come meaning persimmon. We learnt about that with Chef Ryan, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Not responsible persimmons.
Responsible persimmon.
But persimmons in general. Are you a fan, by the way, of persimmons?
They're not my favourite fruit.
No,
I've got to say, I understand why people like them. I think they're the prettiest fruit in Korea.
Oh.
There is nothing quite so wonderful this time of year to see a persimmon tree bare. No leaves, but just these beautiful orange glowing globes hanging from them.
They are very bright. They're perfect for Halloween, actually, thinking about it.
I don't know whether you could carve a face into them.
No, especially the squishy ones. That wouldn't work so well. Anything else come to mind apart from persimmons? For responsibility?
Responsibility. I won't get too political.
Okay.
But look, I think we all need to take responsibility in our lives, and I think it's one of the hardest lessons we have to learn becoming an adult.
Yeah.
Is to learn what exactly 책임 or 책임감 is and how it applies to us.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I moved out of home to go to university, and suddenly I was responsible for all the money, the food, the laundry, everything. And that was a really big deal.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it, the first time that happens? Noor says, are you going hairless then, Paul?
Well, not hairless, just short-haired. I've got clippers and it'll take it down to, I don't know, about a centimetre or so.
Are you still going to have eyebrows and things like that?
I'm leaving the eyebrows and the beard, yeah.
Silver Granny saying, hashtag save the hair, save the hair.
Look, Silver Granny, this is what I do. You've not known me my whole life. But ever since I turned about 16 and I first started growing my hair, there's been a cycle. Every 2 or 3 years, it grows out to a ridiculous length, and then I chop it all off, and then I grow it out again, and chop it all off, grow it out again, chop it all off.
The circle of Paul's hair's life. Stacey asks, can we have your hair?
No, because it can be used for all sorts of terrible magic spells.
Oh, this is true.
Never give your hair to someone else. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, voodoo dolls galore. Today's book, we got a big author today featured, which our producer, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, was like, I didn't realise until I was looking through the book. And to be honest, the name is very familiar, and I realised after my producer said, oh, it's that Cho Nam-joo.
Yes, this is the Cho Nam-joo who wrote that amazing book, Kim Ji-young, born in 1982, which was a mega hit. Movie here with Gong Yoo and so on and so forth. Translated all over the world. Got attention from the press.
Yes.
And this is her new translation. It's just come out at the start of this month.
So this book as well, the original, came out after...
Yeah, this came out in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So it's a relatively recent book. The Korean title is Saha-mention. And for those who have been to Korea know that mansion doesn't usually mean a big palatial residence for one person here in Korea. It means a block of flats or apartments.
Yeah, like a lot of villas are called something mansion
exactly.
as well, right?
So that's the title, Saha-mention, or Saha in English. It's translated by Jamie Chang. And I thought, well, you know, the days and nights are getting colder and winter's knocking on our doors. So
it was dark by like 5:30 yesterday, I thought. 5:40. Like maximum.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't think it gets dark that quickly in Korea, right?
It doesn't.
I think it was because it was super cloudy, like the rain clouds were gathering.
Had you just closed your eyes for a little bit?
No, I promise. My kids were out with me and we were like, why is it so dark? And I was like, yeah, wait, in England it gets dark this quickly, but not in Korea. It must have been because it's cloudy. But anyway, sorry to throw you off.
So to celebrate the death of warmth and light, I thought let's have a little bit of dystopia, because this is what it is. This is very different to her other book we've covered. We get to be welcomed to Town. And Town is a little city that's also an independent country where either you're a citizen, a second-class visa holder, or you're a Saha. And nobody, and I say nobody, wants to be a Saha.
A Saha? Oh, I see. Very, very different, it seems, from Kim Ji-young, born 1982, which was really like... If you missed that whole thing, you've got to read it. You've got to watch the movie, said to be pretty good as well, which was all about...
No, don't bother with the movie. Just read the book, Peter.
Okay. All about like a woman and the struggles that she goes through after giving birth and whatnot.
If you're interested in what it's like just to be an ordinary woman in her 30s and 40s here in Korea, it gives a really detailed description, and it's based on the truth.
Yes.
Because Cho Nam-joo, she wasn't originally an author. This is also, I think, the third time we featured her. We first featured her back in 2020 with a novella called Runaway, and then the big Kim Ji-young, born 1982 when it came out. But originally, she studied sociology at university.
Interesting.
And then she went on to work in TV on a current affairs show as a scriptwriter. So her first sort of big passion and big job was looking at society and looking at the issues in society and, writing scripts for that for TV. But then she got married and she gave birth, and she took time after giving birth to make her literary debut. She had time to actually write a novel. And then over the past decade or so, she's written book after book after book, and it's usually about some difficult aspect of Korean society or society in general. So it's looking at the disadvantaged or those on the margins of society, or in this case, we're looking at the class and the untouchables and the underprivileged. And in Kim Ji-young, looking at ordinary women who have to go through a lot in their lives that other people maybe ignore.
Yes.
So I'm very happy that we get to feature her again and feature Jamie Chang as the translator again.
Jamie Chang also translated Kim Ji-young?
That's correct. Okay. We featured her a number of times, and she's becoming more and more prolific. She's been translating for almost a decade now, and authors like Kim Arirang, Lee Mun-yeol, Son Won-pyong. She lectures at Lee Hwa-wim's University and at the Literature Translation Institute of Korea, and this won't be the last time we feature her, because we feature her pretty much once every couple of months.
I got my fingers burned last week assuming, because we have been for many weeks, starting at the beginning of the book. So where are we going to begin today, Paul, is how I'm going to put it.
Well, we're going to begin, not at the beginning, but about page 3 or 4.
Okie dokie. Let's take it away with our first reading.
There were two classes of people in town, L and L2. The ones with town citizenship were referred to as Ls, or citizens. These were people above a certain level of financial status who had knowledge or skills that town required. Underage residents were recognized as citizens only if they had parents or legal sponsors who were citizens. L2 visas were issued to those without citizenship qualifications who had a clean criminal record. Applicants went through a brief interview and physical examination. They were referred to around town as L2, and their visas were good for 2 years. 2 years were all they got. They were welcome to look for work in all areas during those 2 years without fear of deportation, but most workplaces that sought L2 labor were construction sites, warehouses, cleaning companies, and other hard labor for little pay. When the 2 years were up, L2s had to go through another round of interviews and physical exams to extend their visas. Most L2s were natives who put themselves through the degradation because they didn't have the qualifications to make citizen and simply couldn't leave their hometowns. When the L2s had children they couldn't afford to raise, those children became L2s as well. Chang wasn't even an L2, but a Saha. She wasn't anyone or anything deserving of a category. Saha was what they were called, even if they didn't live in Saha estates, which Chang assumed the name came from. The term seemed to say, this is as far as you get.
Welcome to Arirang Radio.
If you are in Jeju,
88.7 in Jeju City,
88.1 in Seogwipo City,
101.9 in the Daejeong area.
Arirang Radio.
In silence from Janet Saw earlier. Paul trying to sabotage my playlist here. Look, no, I can't say who the backing music, that tense backing music was from Hans
2043
Zimmer.
by Hans Zimmer, yeah.
2049. See, because you
2049.
scribbled all over it, you couldn't read that was a 9, not a 3. That is not checking gum. Hashtag responsibility.
Yeah, but you don't know who directed 2049, did you?
Didn't even know it was a thing.
It's Wong Kar-wai.
Is it a thing?
No,
Is it a film?
it's a film.
I didn't know that.
Peter.
I got some messages from our listeners.
Go on then.
Paul, how could you? You brought in a story so interesting. I have no choice but to sacrifice sleep.
Yay!
It's going to miss Ashley's Twitch now.
This is what Arirang Radio is all about, depriving you of sleep and making you feel grumpy tomorrow morning.
Fabulous.
Tropic Girl says, now that's a very hierarchical society it is, labeling people and putting them into boxes so they cannot move out of. It's what this story is all about, Tropic Girl.
You know, it might sound dystopian, but to be honest, we've had that in not too distant a past in many countries, to be honest, and probably still in some countries.
Yes.
Tropical also says, so if you're an L2, always an L2. If you have a kid, she's also an L2. Then what's the dream for the future? May as well not have kids, subjecting your family to a bleak future with no advancement.
There are some young people in Korea who would like to have a word with you, Tropic Girl.
I think so, right? We're talking about that with David Tissard. I've done on a few occasions that hell Joseon, you know, being bandied about a lot, talking about Korea. Siska saying, so Saha is the name of a person?
You can be called a Saha.
But that's not your name.
No, it's like the nickname. It's like saying you're a commoner or you're an untouchable. I think the closest we have is the untouchable. And we'll talk about that in Korean context a little bit later, because back in the Joseon Dynasty, we also had a caste system here in Korea.
Interesting. Yeah, I was talking to a writer for some show possibly going to do in the future, about...
What, you're leaving Arirang?
No, of course not. This is my...
Am I getting your show?
Butter.
Am I taking... I was going to give you King Paul from 2023.
We're talking about Shanghai, where it was like an international settlement, and how, there were different classes of people there. Like the foreigners who were in there were kind of ruling the roost, and then a lot of Chinese people were coming in. If you were rich, you could hang out together. If you weren't, you'd work as a butler or a maid and things like this. And your records wouldn't be kept and things. It's all sorts of interesting, really painful past. Maybe there's some inspiration drawn in this. So the main character is Jin-young?
She is one of the main characters.
Okay.
Certainly, she takes us through the first part of the story.
Mm-hmm. And she's a Saha.
She is. She's the lowest of the low. There's not much you can do about it. She's 30 years old. Her brother is 25. They came to town after their father died and their mother left them with nothing at all.
Oh.
And they were helped by the kindly old custodian at the Saha estates. They moved in there, and now they survive on almost nothing at all, with Jin-young doing any work she can get her hands on, day and night.
And that Saha estate seems to be where the name comes from, and that's like the rubbish accommodation kind of thing.
Where the lowest of the low are living because there's nowhere else to go. But we also have to talk about a death that happens before this excerpt that I read. So at the very start of the book, we find Sue, who's a pediatrician, is dead in a car.
Uh-oh.
Waking up next to her is Do-kyung, Jin-young's brother, and he stumbles out of the car and away, and it seems like he doesn't know what's happened.
Uh-oh.
And then we switch to Jin-young, who's doing these awful cleaning jobs. She's worried about her brother because he's gone missing.
Oh, no.
Then she hears about a murder on the news and realizes it must be Sue that has been murdered.
She knows Sue.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we flash back and forward, learning more about the siblings' past, also about Do-kyung's relationship with Sue. We focus on different residents of the Saha estates as we go. And the police, they come knocking quite forcefully at the doors. They question Jin-young, but she doesn't know anything. And once they're gone, a friend of hers, Sarah, tells her that Do-kyung has been hiding at her place in her refrigerator because the police were not searching single women's homes. And Sarah knows both of them. She's a bartender. She was born with only one eye. And we see from her perspective what's been going on, like Do-kyung and Sue's relationship. But they were a couple.
Okay.
And we learn more about her own life, her own past, how her mother, who was an L2, actually married a citizen.
Oh.
But then had to leave after being abused and went back to the Saha estates.
Oh, no.
And then we see Sarah getting attacked by the police, ambushed at night later by the police again. And she's saved, fortunately, by the giant of a woman, Umi, who lives and sort of protects the residents of Saha.
Oh, a hero.
Yeah, and it feels like the women of the estate always come together to help each other, whether it's looking after the kids, whether it's looking after each other, whether it's making sure everyone's got enough food, enough to eat. And so then we get to the heart of Sue and Do-kyung's life, how they got to know each other, how she came to Saha as a citizen, as a pediatrician, to treat the children who lived there.
Oh, that's lovely.
And eventually she wants to move in with Do-kyung. Even though she's a citizen, she wants to come and live at Saha Estates.
Nice.
And she says, look, don't worry, I've got the money. You draw and paint. You explore your artistic side.
Okay.
I'll keep working hard. But they get in trouble because she gets caught taking supplies from the clinic to treat these kids at Saha.
Which is a nice thing to do.
But it goes against hospital policy. She loses her medical license.
Uh-oh.
It becomes too much. And Sue convinces Do-kyung that they should take their own lives.
What?
So they end up in this car, and she's got pills for them. And she takes more than him, because she says, because I'm used to these, so I'll need to take more. But he's the only one who wakes up.
That's terrible.
And then we go back to present day, where Do-kyung has decided he's going to leave Sarah's place. And he heads out, and he goes to where he last left Sue, where they'd been in the car together.
Okay.
And finds himself being chased by a man with a gun.
What?
A man shouting at him, demanding to know why he killed her.
Oh, no.
And he sobs, Do-kyung, sobs and sobs, shouting, I did not kill her. I did not kill her.
And that's where we'll pick up the second excerpt.
People were curious to know if the incident was a love scandal or a crime. Titillated might be more accurate. Of the two people who knew the truth, One was dead and the other was unreliable. But there were definitely those who remembered Do-kyung and Sue as a couple. The news ran an interview with one of Sue's co-workers who reported that she saw them eating together at a restaurant by the hospital, and an interview with a cafe owner who remembered the two of them coming by sometimes and gazing at each other without saying much. Not many people pay cash these days. That's why I remembered him. He always ordered a beer, and the doctor always ordered coffee, and the man always paid cash. So I wondered for a moment if he was a Saha. But my kid's doctor was also at the hospital. I thought no way a doctor like that would go out with a Saha, so I was shocked when I found out. Did they look like lovers? Was there any indication that the man was dragging the woman around? I actually got the impression the man was on a tight leash. Oh, and this one time the doctor slammed her hands down on the table, got up and left by herself. So the man pulled out a bunch of cash from his pocket to pay the bill and followed her out. Without taking the change? No, he took all the change. Despite the number of eyewitness accounts, the world did not accept Sue and Do-kyung as an average couple. Common sense was more convincing than first-hand accounts. The man was not even an L2 but a complete Saha, and the woman was a town pediatrician. Speculation suggested that she had something to hide, or feared for her life. The media dug into Sue's past and reported that her parents had divorced when she was very young, that she lived with a stepmother for over 20 years, that her engagement to a man 11 years her senior was broken right before the wedding, and that she received plastic surgery after that. People came up with all sorts of theories to understand Sue's decisions, but no one could make sense of her. A relationship was, after all, between the two people involved. A world with its own private rules. Unofficially, the greatest scandal in the history of town. Officially, a Saha male raping and murdering a citizen female. In the end, Do-kyung could not protect Sue from being passed around as the protagonist of vulgar gossip, and no amount of struggle could get Do-kyung out of the snare he was caught in. While the rest of town thought they had Sue all figured out, Do-kyung would always think of Sue as a wonder.
Oh, I love this. It's like the inner workings of like people's minds and how they just hear what they want to hear, perhaps, and will only believe what they want to.
How could a citizen love a Saha?
That's not going to happen, a respectable doctor. And that line about the relationship between the two people involved, a world with its own private rules, that's so true.
It is.
If you're a couple, you could have all sorts of weird, unfair power imbalances, but that's just your world.
It's just you and your wife.
Yeah, of course. She definitely rules the roost. Help! Help! So what happens to Do-kyung? Does he get shot?
Well, before we find out, we're taken back in time again.
Oh.
And we learn more about town and its residents decades before, how all these residents of the Saha estates are interlinked in some way. They all have connections. They're all living in this same one complex of buildings.
Yeah.
We learn of the disease that spread across the world and through town. We learn of lockdowns and deaths.
Oh.
And we learn of Granny Konnim, who 30 years back was an unofficial midwife who secretly performed illegal abortions for those who needed them.
Oh.
And she had to flee to Saha Estates after a young girl died on her operating table.
Uh-oh.
But because she came to Saha, she was able to save Umi's life when her mother died giving birth to her. And she raises Umi.
The big woman who protects.
Yeah, sort of the guardian of Saha, and takes in another baby that was abandoned. And then we find out about Umi and how throughout her childhood this medical research center keeps on bringing her in and examining her. And eventually she overhears things and she escapes from the facility and meets someone who's on her side and who says he can help her get access to information, that she's a master key, is how they describe it.
Interesting.
But she gets caught. They can't let her go. They want to know why she doesn't get sick. And so Umi now has disappeared from Saha Estates. Jin-kyung is trying to find out what's happened, where she's gone. But then she gets a letter. It's a letter from town.
Okay.
Do-kyung's been arrested and was executed for murder.
Oh, no.
And his remains have been hygienically disposed of.
Oh, he's gone.
That's it. And then she's taken to the research center by by, it seems, government officials. They've got something they want to tell her. And she meets with them. She sees Umi sort of sedated, trapped in a glass case.
Oh, no.
And they say, well, look, there's someone at Saha that's got some material that we want. And this person refuses to give it back to us. So if you get it back for us, well, we've got something that you want.
Oh.
So she's got to make a choice. And she goes back to Saha and gets some advice from the old custodian, who's sort of the father figure of the estates, the one who took her and her brother in all those years ago.
Are we deliberately not really meant to know what this something she wants is at the moment? As in Jin-kyung, is it her brother? Is it Umi?
Why do you think I would tell you that?
All right, let's get to the third reading then.
Why would you? If I don't tell you something, there's a reason for it.
Zippity-doo-dah-dee-dee.
Jin-kyung. The old man suddenly said, never mind. He called her again and changed his mind again. Jin-kyung left the office and smoked in a corner of the garden. She pulled out the business card and examined the back and front. Was it delusional to think that the announcement to demolish Saha was their way of pressuring, threatening Jin-kyung? Just then, someone came up from behind and snatched the business card from her hand. She whipped her head around in surprise and saw the old man squinting at the card. Was she allowed to show it to others? Jin-kyung wondered for a moment, but all it contained was a number anyway. Who? Jin-kyung only laughed, not knowing what to tell him. The old man shrugged. You know the story of the turtle in the hare? He asked, returning the business card to her. The race? The hare falls asleep? That's the tortoise and the hare. Turtle. I'm talking about the turtle. The old man settled into the chair in front of the custodian's office and began the story. Once, long, long ago, the Dragon King who lived in the Dragon Palace in the ocean was fatally ill. And Jin-kyung was bewildered by how serious the old man was about this story. He paid no attention to Jin-kyung as he did voices of different characters as if he were acting out a children's story for an audience of one. The only cure for the Dragon King's illness was the famous rabbit liver. So after a rumble and a tumble, the turtle brings the rabbit to the Dragon King, but the rabbit lies. I left my liver out in the sun to dry. So the turtle swims back to land with the rabbit. You think it was wrong of the rabbit to lie? The old man asked. It was scared blind. Its life depended on it. That's right. That's why you never trust the words of someone who's scared blind. It wasn't there. He followed all the way back, but the liver still wasn't there. So, always ask yourself, where is the real thing? Maybe he did know something. The old man. Jin-kyung took out a cigarette and gave it to him. He waved it off and went back into his office. Jin-kyung took his seat and mulled for a long time over what he said. It wasn't there. He followed all the way back, but it still wasn't there. So always ask yourself, where is the real thing?
Oh, I like that story. I like this book, but what is the real thing? Where is the real thing? Are you going to leave us hanging? Jin-kyung does accomplish her mission, brings it back to them, gets what she needs, wants back from them. We're not going to know, are you?
Well, I know. I read the book.
Yeah, well, then tell us.
No, you're going to have to buy or borrow the book to find out what happens. I don't like to completely spoil an exciting story like this. And I really recommend it because the world building, the detail in this book is incredible.
Is it a long one?
It's not too long. It's only a couple of hundred pages, but it goes on about the town's history. It was created not by people, but by a corporation, by some sort of chaebol-like organization. And we go through its violent past, the riots, the lives of these myriad residents of the Saha estates. I've not been able to cover them in detail because we only have half an hour together.
Yes.
But there's so much to explore here. And there are echoes of the Sewol disaster.
Oh.
The weird thing is there's echoes of COVID, even though this was written in 2019.
Yeah, you mentioned
which is
earlier,
fascinating.
right? Yeah.
And there's echoes of the darker parts, of Korea's past, but also the world's past. And you sort of start asking yourself, is this an allegory for modern Korean society, or is it an allegory for North Korean society, or is it about the pressures of capitalism on the world? What is it about? What's certain is this is a really brutal dissection of how class systems work and how society chooses to ignore, to exploit, or to forget about those at the very lowest level. It's been fascinating for me as a user of social media for the past couple of weeks, linking this to the real world, how billionaire Elon Musk has treated Twitter since he bought it. And it makes me think that Town might be a bit like what a billionaire like Elon Musk or a corporation would do in real life.
Kind of like ignoring the lower rungs of the ladder, not seeing things from their point of view at all.
Yes, and it also makes me think about the Chosun dynasty in Korea's old caste system. We have the term baekjeong, which nowadays is basically translated as butcher. But the baekjeong were the lowest of the low. They were the untouchables.
Yeah, no one, even my mum, still to this day, has that kind of stereotype. She says, obviously, butchers are fine people, but when she was brought up, you wouldn't go near a butcher, right? If you're going to marry a butcher or something like that, her older brothers would go crazy and things like this.
Exactly. So it's a really fascinating look at the class system, and certainly it's got links to Korea, but it's also got links to elsewhere in the world and links to history of the world. Yeah. I really love it. It's very, very different to the other stories we featured of hers. And I think if you like sci-fi, if you like dystopian fiction, if you like 1984 crossed with Korea, this could be the book for you.
It's really intriguing, really gets you thinking. Tigger is just saying to one psychological aspect of this that, people in general just like to gossip and make their own stories of others, especially well-to-do people sometimes. Tropic Girl also saying heavy discrimination in this, talking about capitalism and injustice and everything like that. But maybe true love can transcend all boundaries, lines in the sand and distance, like the couple that you mentioned earlier, her brother and the doctor.
Well, they're both dead.
Yes, that's not a great ending.
Then we have Emlita saying, I think I have this book, the Indonesian translation, but the title of the book is Saha-mention, not Saha. Yes, that is the original Korean title, Saha-mention. So it seems like the Indonesian translation has kept the original title, and the English translation is just Saha.
Lovely stuff. Today's winner of the 3-month premium membership to Talk to Me in Korean.com is Ravathi Jagathi on the VLive service. Send us your email address, Ravathi, and we will let you have the prize. And Paul, thank you very much for your fabulous reading. It was even better today.
What, you mean it's been bad the past few days?
No, I think I inspired you to be better.
Right. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea for their help with copyright permission for this broadcast. Thanks to Cho Nam-joo for her excellent dystopian novel and to Jamie Chang for her brilliant translation. Next week, it's a short story, a very short story that you can get online for free. It's called Whale Snows Down. It's by Kim Bo-young. It's translated by Sophie Bowman, so search for that. Whale Snows Down by Kim Bo-young. A little bit of sci-fi to end the month.
Oh, lovely stuff, Paul. We'll see you then. Have a great week.
Goodbye!
You can listen to Check It Out with Paul Matthews on Arirang Radio's #DailyK every Wednesday from 10 a.m. KST.